Former Nigerian President Goodluck Jonathan is urging ECOWAS to compel Guinea-Bissau's military authorities to release detained opposition candidate Fernando Diaz da Costa and immediately announce the country's stalled election status and results. Jonathan briefed President Bolarinwa in Abuja after he was airlifted from Bissau when soldiers seized power before final results could be declared. He said the tally was nearly complete and insists the will of the voters must not be suppressed under military pressure. According to Jonathan, the military cannot simply be forced out, but ECOWAS must press them to do the right thing, release the detained opposition figure, and allow the rightful winner to be sworn in. Meanwhile, former Labour Party presidential candidate Peter Obi is accusing ECOWAS of double standards. In a statement on X, Obi questioned why the bloc swiftly sanctioned Guinea-Bissau over the coup attempt, yet remains silent when elections elsewhere are marred by so-called technical glitches. He argued that both military disruptions and manipulated technical failures undermine democracy and ultimately deny citizens their mandate. Well, the director of research at the Nigeria Institute of International Affairs, Professor Joshua Bolarinwa, joins us now for a conversation about the ECOWAS intervention in Guinea-Bissau in the aftermath of the palace coup and its effect on the entrenching democracy in the region. Great to have you join the program. Thank you for joining us, Professor.
Thank you.
So, unfortunate things happening in Guinea-Bissau. What do you make of the coup attempt, the aftermath, and of course, our former president, Goodluck Jonathan's remarks on what had transpired?
What has happened in Guinea-Bissau between November 26th and 27th, 2025 is really a big drama and at the same time a disappointing scenario because Guinea-Bissau had been undergoing presidential and parliamentary elections since November 2023 up to that November 26th of 2025. On the same day of 26th, it was reported that results were being collated. All sheets, election results were brought in for total collation, and everything was almost at the verge of result announcement. And before we know it, the president Mbalo himself was the one who first came on air and announced that he has been arrested, there was a coup, and all of that. And that was what brought all of the political tension, all of the crisis, all of the problems that engulfed an election which had been very peaceful, an election which had been very seen to be stable and ready to be announced, the results ready to be announced. And all of a sudden, it was announced there was a coup. But the drama there was that not the coup plotters or the leaders of the coup who announced the coup. It was the President Mbalo himself, who announced first that there was a coup. How could that be? What is happening? What is the situation in Guinea-Bissau? And Guinea-Bissau has been a country which had been experiencing a lot of crises, particularly narcotic crisis, because Guinea-Bissau had been the corridor of narcotics, and both the transporting, both the selling, both the carrying of it and selling of it around West Africa. Guinea-Bissau had been the headquarters of narcotics. So a lot of drugs are being peddled, being sold. So all of that have been a major problem in Guinea-Bissau. It's a major corridor for narcotics, trafficking, transiting, selling, and all of that. Apart from that, this same President Mbalo had suspended the Guinea-Bissau's parliament since 2023. They've been suspended. He's been running the government nearly all alone before this general presidential and parliamentary elections that started or that were held on November 23rd. And eventually, on the 26th, it was announced there was a coup. And on the 27th, General Oita came on board and said he was going to be the transition president or the leader of the Guinea-Bissau transition to whatever government they call it from that 27th. And he was made the leader of that this thing. And the ECOWAS observers and other international observers who came to observe the elections were still on ground. They were still on ground as at the time when the coup occurred.
Now, Professor Bolarinwa, I'm just wondering how optimistic you are, that ECOWAS's intervention in Guinea-Bissau will restore constitutional order, considering how things played out in Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso.
Well, of course, ECOWAS has learned from its past experience, and ECOWAS has always been ready. ECOWAS, despite all challenges, ECOWAS still remains the most successful regional economic community in Africa, and compared to even other regions around the world, ECOWAS is still expected to have made a lot of progress, and they have done very well. Beyond the experience of Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, and Guinea-Conakry, ECOWAS had recorded a lot of progresses and successes in places like the Gambia, even Togo to an extent, and some other countries, including Cote d'Ivoire. Of course, we know that there is also something brewing in Cote d'Ivoire too, but at least ECOWAS had recorded a lot of successes before now. Apart from that, ECOWAS has a lot of frameworks, regional frameworks to ensure stability in West Africa or in the ECOWAS region. Take, for example, the protocol, the 2001 Protocol on Democracy and Good Governance. And within that provision of that protocol, there is a special committee on mediation, security and mediation committee, which the chair of the ECOWAS authority always chair. And immediately this coup occurred in Guinea-Bissau. On the 27th of November, they summoned an emergency virtual meeting that had all of the representatives of all the existing ECOWAS member states, including Nigeria, Togo, Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire, even Sierra Leone. The current chair of the authority of ECOWAS is President Bill of Sierra Leone. He was also in attendance, and they quickly swung into action following the ECOWAS protocol on good governance and democracy that says they can intervene, they can mediate, and they try to ensure there is return to status quo. So they met and quickly prevailed on the coup leaders in Guinea-Bissau to return to constitutional order, to try to protect all of the ECOWAS observers and other international observers in Bissau and Guinea-Bissau generally, and at the same time try to protect the ousted president and his family members and all other members of the government, but more importantly that Guinea-Bissau should return to constitutional order. Again, if you look at ECOWAS revised treaty, 1993 revised treaty, in Articles 90 and 91, ECOWAS has always been trying to let the member states know that if you are withdrawing your membership from ECOWAS, you need to give 1 year notice that you are leaving the ECOWAS. And apart from that, from the ECOWAS Protocol on Democracy of 2001 and the supplementary protocol of 2012 of the same ECOWAS protocol on good governance and democracy and good governance also made provisions that any member state that changes its government unconstitutionally will have to be suspended. So ECOWAS has immediately suspended Guinea-Bissau because of that coup. And they have also advised and prevailed on the coup leaders in Bissau to return to constitutional order and to allow for an atmosphere whereby they will return to status quo and allow the results of the elections, presidential and the parliamentary elections, allow for the results to be released, and the country will continue in the normal democratic constitutional process or order it has been. All of this, ECOWAS has decided in a communique. Apart from that, the African Union has also supported and strengthened the ECOWAS authorities' decision by also automatically suspending Guinea-Bissau and at the same time advising Guinea-Bissau to return to status quo. Return to status quo, allow the election process to be concluded, allow the results to be released. All of this started when both incumbent President Mbalo, and the Da Costa, the opposition leader, all of them were laying claim to winning the elections, even when the results have not been released. And like I said earlier, Guinea-Bissau has also been seen as the headquarters of narcotics selling, transiting, trafficking, doing all of that within the West African region. In fact, Guinea-Bissau have been described as the corridor of narcotics in West Africa. Apart from that, there have been these drug barons infighting, politicking, fighting, serious crisis over drug trafficking and all of that. So they said that even the UN had also identified and declared Guinea-Bissau as an emergency state or a state of emergency for narcotics, trafficking, and other problems within West Africa. So all of these challenges have been there. And like I said earlier too, President Mbalo had suspended the parliament since 2023. All of that too had been there. So there have been infighting among the drug barons, the narcotic trading or trade or crisis, then the politics of suspending the parliament before now, and the tension, the electioneering campaigns and issues surrounding the elections before these general elections that started on November 2023. All of these have been the situation, all of them have been the scenarios on ground which led to this coup. And the coup leader, the general author, they are claiming that, the coup leaders are claiming that it was the situation they want to maintain order, restoration of the order. That's what they are claiming.
Professor, just for the sake of time, thank you for that overview. We know that ECOWAS is using sanctions, obviously, as a punitive measure. And based on your own research and also just seeing how these coups have played out in West Africa in the past couple of years, how effective are these measures been against other countries, especially Guinea-Bissau in the past? Do they really pressure the coup leaders, or are they primarily just there to harm the general population, as we've seen time and again in coup areas?
Of course, before now, with the experiences of Niger, Burkina Faso, Mali, and others, there have been always pressures from the ECOWAS on coup leaders in those states. But this of Guinea-Bissau, you know, of course, immediately after the ECOWAS authorities meeting on November 27th, they quickly dispatched a powerful delegation led by the chair of the authority of ECOWAS Heads of State, with President Bill of Sierra Leone, with President Faye of Senegal, with the President of the Council of Parliament of Togo, President Faye Nasingbe Yadema, and also the President of ECOWAS Commission. All of them have moved to prevail on the coup leaders in Bissau, and negotiations are still going on. With negotiations, with mediation, with diplomacy, and a strong rapprochement has been done now, there is hope that ECOWAS will be able to prevail on the coup leaders in Guinea-Bissau. And we hope that Guinea-Bissau will return to status quo. Guinea-Bissau will maintain constitutional order. Guinea-Bissau will reverse the unconstitutional change which has happened in Bissau. And with this rapprochement, with this diplomacy, with this negotiation, with this mediation, with this understanding, I hope everything will come out strongly and positively. So ECOWAS is trying its best. And ECOWAS, I know, will achieve results. And
Professor,
we should be hopeful, we should be encouraging ECOWAS with diplomacy. There will be good things coming out of it.
Now, thank you so much for that. Just before we wrap up, some critics believe that ECOWAS needs to come up with preventive measures rather than reactive measures, on stopping coups in West Africa. Isn't it possible, for ECOWAS to focus more and emphasize more the doctrine of good governance instead of sanctions and suspensions? What are your thoughts on this? Very briefly.
Yes, my thoughts are that you may be very right that ECOWAS, in addition to its efforts, in addition to the frameworks, in addition to its many protocols, many moratoria, many frameworks they have put in place, ECOWAS should move a step further now from a proactive diplomacy to preventive diplomacy. And beyond preventive diplomacy, ECOWAS should also begin to act within its authority of heads of states to always prevail on leaders of member states that please correct this, do this, make sure these things are in order so that they will do what is right and not be reacting when it has happened this way, but they would have taken preventive measures. They will have taken measures that will say, okay, let us correct all of these anomalies, and then we'll move ahead and do what is right. Apart from that, ECOWAS should also put in place mechanism to punish its member states, mechanism to punish, particularly the members of the authority of error. They should punish themselves and say, Mr. President of so state, we have had reports and we have also investigated these reports that you are not doing this. Please, can you do that? Because if anything happens in the future, we will not support you or all of that. So preventive diplomacy rather than proactive diplomacy, ECOWAS should adopt. 2, ECOWAS should prevail on its members of the authority of the ECOWAS heads of states. They should prevail on themselves, talk to themselves, and do what is right. And thirdly, ECOWAS should promote good governance. Good governance. Good governance, provision of infrastructure, good governance, basic education, good governance, provision of employment facilities or employment opportunities to the teeming population, particularly with the youth bulge across the world now, especially in Africa. ECOWAS should provide more job opportunities to the youth population, the teeming population, provide job opportunities. ECOWAS should also prevail on its member states to make sure that they make provisions, social provisions, deliver on their social contracts. If all of these things are done, I think ECOWAS will be having less effort or work to do in this context of Guinea-Bissau in reacting after the deed has been done, but to have reacted preventively before it gets to a stage of coups.
Very well said, Professor. John Bolarinwa, the Director Research Fellow of the NIIA. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.